Object Pokemon are some of the most polarizing in the series. Many people enjoy them to some extent, but others have qualms about Pokemon that aren't based on plants or animals. So what's up, fellas? I'm Matt, and today we're going to talk about why we think object Pokemon are perfectly fine. Alright, let's get started.
What's up? It's your boy. What's up? I'm Elias, and many people describe object Pokemon as lazy, which we don't agree with. Vanillux and Garbodor are two prime examples of object Pokemon, and they've been quite divisive over the years. You might have heard someone describe Vanillux as just an ice cream cone, but there's a lot more to its design than just that.
Vanillux was introduced in the Unova region, which is based on New York City.
The greatest city of all time.
We're gonna get to that. Many people at Game Freak created Pokemon with that information in mind, including Vanillux's designer James Turner. Since this is the first region based on the United States, Turner wanted to create a Pokemon inspired by American food mascots. That includes stuff like the Kool-Aid Man, Tony the Tiger, and Little Caesar. Leave a comment if you would buy Vanillux brand ice cream. Turner's goal with Vanillux was to capture that blend of cute / goofy / creepy / happy. He also cited another specific inspiration for Vanillux. The movie Ghostbusters is set in New York City, so he kept the Stay Puft's Marshmallow Man in mind as well.
Ken Sugimori has also talked about the Vanillite line in interviews. He said there aren't that many food Pokemon out there because Game Freak finds them more difficult to design than animal Pokemon. You can't just draw a fruit and give it a face because that would look too basic and amateurish. Sugimori has said that a bad food Pokemon design would look like a Yuri Kiara. That's a type of mascot that's often seen in Japan, and their designs are usually very simple. That's not what Game Freak is going for with their food Pokemon, so Vanillux's design and inspirations are more complex than that.
Object Pokemon often take even more effort to create compared to animal Pokemon. At the end of the day, everyone is entitled to their own opinions about Pokemon designs. If you're not a fan of the Vanillite line, this explanation may not have convinced you otherwise, and that's fine. We just want to make it clear that a lot of Pokemon designs do have a good deal of thought put into them, even if their concepts may seem basic at first. It's not like the designers put googly eyes on random stuff in the office and called it a day.
Pizza Pokemon when? Unova DLC?
Be patient, we still have not had an Italy region.
Excuse me, if you think pizza is Italian,
I would be correct.
God.
That's where pizza comes from.
They may have created it, but we perfected it. The folks at the Pokemon Company have also discussed Garbodor's inspirations. They wanted to create some sort of pollution Pokemon for Gen 5, kind of like some of the poison types from Gen 1. They ended up making a Pokemon out of garbage, because that's a common type of pollution you see in cities.
I have two words for you. Can confirm. Elias and I live in New York, and we think it's a great city. But as you'd expect, 8.5 million people produce a lot of garbage. Sometimes the wind will be strong enough that garbage bags just start flying towards you. The pollution theme would be less clear if Trubbish and Garbodor were based on animals, so a garbage Pokemon makes perfect sense, especially in Unova.
People argue that object Pokemon are lazy, but a lot of animal-based Pokemon have pretty simple designs. Seal and Dugong are based on aquatic mammals like, well, seals and dugongs. There's not really a whole lot going on there. To be clear though, we don't think that's inherently a bad thing. Dugong is a sentient derp, and we love that for him. There's also Flamigo, and we're gonna be honest, if you showed us this guy 5 years ago with no context, we wouldn't even think that it was a Pokemon. It looks like it could be a regular Flamingo in like 60% of cartoons in human history. We stuck Flamigo into a random Family Guy scene, and it doesn't even feel that out of place. It looks like something Peter would buy as a pet and cause chaos with.
Leave a comment with a Family Guy plot involving a flamingo. Best comment gets nothing. No prize. There are arguments to be made in Flamigo's favor, of course. Some folks think it could be inspired by things like boxing gloves, but that doesn't really add much to its design if you ask me. It's not a heinously atrocious Pokemon that should be guillotined at once, but I do think Game Freak could have easily taken this to the next level. There are a ton of object Pokemon out there, and I like a lot of them more than Flamigo. Some Pokemon just miss the mark in our opinion, whether they're based on animals or objects.
On the opposite end of the spectrum, there are some object Pokemon that we think knock it out of the park. Chandelure is one of our favorite Pokemon, for example. A fire ghost type Chandelier Pokemon is cool as hell, and we will not be taking questions at this time. Aegislash is another Pokemon in that same camp if you ask us. It's a great Pokemon that fits in perfectly in Kalos, considering all of the European legends out there that involve swords.
Alchemy is a pile of whipped cream, which isn't terribly exciting on its own, but its Gigantamax form is a wedding cake, which is very funny to me. There are so many object Pokemon at this point, and a lot of them have at least something neat going for them. Most Pokemon are based on animals, and it'll likely stay that way for the foreseeable future. But object Pokemon also bring their own unique flavor to the series.
I would buy Vanillux brand ice cream.
This is the correct answer.
I wonder if they make other flavors.
No, legally they can only make vanilla.
So true. Here's another thing to think about. Tom Wayland used to be the Pokemon anime's voice director, and he said that object Pokemon drive him crazy because they're some of the most difficult to work with. Coming up with voices for animal-based Pokemon takes some effort, but object-based Pokemon require a lot more creative thinking.
Let's say we get a new snake Pokemon in Generation 10. At some point, someone is going to have to decide what it'll sound like in the anime. The actors have an idea of what snakes sound like in real life as well as cartoons, and that serves as a guide of sorts. They would take what they know about snakes and create a new voice with that information in mind. If they don't go through that process, and they just gave each Pokemon any old voice, the show would be a whole lot more off-putting. Hey Elias, give me your worst Snorlax voice.
Snorlax.
Snorlax?
Now imagine you're the show's voice director and you're told about something like Litwick. Alright, so what in the hell is a candle supposed to sound like? With a Pokemon like that, you've got to sit down and essentially start from scratch. Candles don't make a whole lot of noise in real life, and they definitely don't make animal or human-like noises, so you've essentially got to come up with something brand new. Here's what we wound up getting on the show.
So you're the one who did this to us!
Litwick. That's not what
That's
Litwick
exactly
sounds like.
what it sounds like.
Creating voices for object Pokemon is more difficult, but it's not impossible. If you give it enough thought, you'll be able to come up with something reasonable. Wayland was the original voice actor for the entire Honedge line, so how did he decide what a bunch of swords would sound like? Well, you could try and give it a metallic sort of sound, as if it's being pulled out of a sheath or something, but you know what else would be fitting for a sword Pokemon? Lightsaber noises.
I like that.
Yeah.
To create Honedge's voice, Wayland essentially started by roughly imitating a lightsaber. Then he took that voice and added a bunch of effects to it.
Fury Cutter!
So now it basically doesn't sound like a person or animal whatsoever, which is exactly what he was going for. Then the rest of the evolution line builds upon these ideas. Doublade consists of 2 swords, so it naturally has a double-tracked voice, which is noticeably lower pitched than Honedge's.
Check it out!
Then Aegislash's voice is more of the same.
Object Pokemon also open up a lot more creative possibilities, and Revavroom is one of the prime examples of that. This guy is based on multi-cylinder engines, which Team Star takes full advantage of. Ortega tricked out a bunch of Revavroom and used them to create the Starmobiles, and each Team Star boss has one as their ace. This sort of thing wouldn't make nearly as much sense if they used an animal-based Pokemon. Yeah man, my car is powered by 10 Palpitoad. They're just doing their best. Smile.
Cool comments might get pinned.
Not if Evil MEPlaysGames gets there first. Oh yeah, by the way, full disclosure, Evil MEPlaysGames is... Huh?
No. Keep it going. Jigglypuff is another good example in our minds. It looks more animal-like compared to other object Pokemon, but it's primarily based on balloons, and several games take advantage of that fact. Jigglypuff deflates when it faints in Pokemon Stadium, and it also deflates when you use its down taunt in the Smash series.
But wait, there's more. Normally, when your shield breaks in Smash, you'll be unable to move for several seconds, which gives your opponent ample time to start a combo or fire off a free kill move. When Jigglypuff's shield breaks, it goes flying upwards at breakneck speeds, which immediately results in certain death, unless it was standing under a ceiling. I think it's one of the funniest mechanics in Smash, and it exists because it represents a balloon popping. Yes, but pizza is an Italian thing. You cannot deny that fact. Oh my god.
The pizza they serve in Italy is not as good as the pizza they serve here in this city.
And have you been to Italy?
Yes, I have, and I have eaten pizza in Italy, and I would much rather have a New York dollar slice.
You are a hater. Also, those dollar slices cost like $2.75 now.
Shut up. The Pokemon franchise has been around for many years, and it will probably be for many more. If object Pokemon didn't exist and Game Freak just stuck to animals for inspiration, they'd run out of viable designs a lot faster. After a while, they would just keep revisiting the same kinds of animals over and over and over, and the series would get stale a whole lot faster. I don't think we need a platypus that breathes fire, and a ghost platypus, and a platypus thing with wings, and a kickboxing platypus, and a platypus that can read minds, and a platypus that... Object Pokemon help alleviate that problem because there are a metric ton of inanimate objects in the world.
A lot of the disdain for object Pokemon is directed at Gen 5, particularly the Vanillix and Garbodor lines, but Pokemon have never been exclusively based on animals. Several object Pokemon have been around since Gen 1, including Grimer and Muck. These guys represent sludge the same way Garbodor represents garbage. You've also got Coughing and Wheezing, which represents smog. So Garbodor is far from the only pollution-based Pokemon out there.
I don't know, there's no garbage in New York, dude. It's called trash.
What is the difference? coincidence.
Garbage is like neat, organized in a way, but trash is just trash, dude.
I'm gonna come over to your office and beat you to death.
Okay, buddy. Voltorb and Electrode are commonly mistaken for Pokeballs in the Pokemon world, resulting in a lot of people being zapped or caught in an explosion. The Golem line takes inspiration from, well, golems, which are creatures in Jewish folklore that are made of something inanimate like mud. Geodude, Graveler, and Golem follow that same idea, but they're made of rocks instead.
Even if we did think that object Pokemon were stupid and bad, it still wouldn't be fair to single out Gen 5. These kinds of Pokemon have always existed, and many of them bring something of value to the table. We wouldn't necessarily consider using all of these Pokemon in playthroughs. We don't think their existence in the game is a problem at all.
Many object Pokemon could also be inspired by Japanese folklore. Tsukumogami are inanimate objects that gain a spirit and come to life after existing for 100 years. Folk tales describe all sorts of objects being possessed by these spirits, including furniture, clothes, and mirrors, among many others.
The same way objects can come to life in folklore, the Pokemon world is full of living key rings and gears and snowflakes and whatnot. This could very well be a coincidence, but Voltorb's Pokedex number is 100, which could represent the 100 years before objects come to life. Take that with a grain of salt and or sand and or rice though. Tales about sentient objects have been around for a long time, and the Pokemon series is just putting their own spin on that concept.
We've also seen people say that object Pokemon just don't make any logical sense. Trash bags don't just sprout legs and start walking around, Pokemon based on man-made food items or electronics shouldn't exist in the wild, and so on and so on. At the end of the day though, it's night.
So true, bestie.
At the end of the day though, Pokemon is a work of fiction. It's not meant to follow the rules of the real world beat for beat.
It's fun having things like sentient rocks, icebergs, and speakers out in the wild, and there's no need to justify it with real-world logic. Real dogs don't breathe fire, but most people aren't gonna say that Arcanine sucks because it doesn't make sense. The same kind of idea goes for every single Pokemon in the game. The rules of real life are applied extremely loosely, and that's by design. The game is much more varied and dynamic that way, and object Pokemon are a big part of that. 8.5 million people produce a lot of garbage. Sometimes the wind will...
Seems to be your line, friend.
You're trash, friend.
It seems to be your line.
You're awful, you know that?
Okay.
The same way objects can come to life in folklore?
Folklore.
All right. Folklore. Hey, man, I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna write a bunch of myths and legends about forks. It's been well established that Evil Me Plays Games is me, Elias.
If there are some people who believe it, then let them believe it. Don't destroy their illusion. Think about it.
Is this really what we're doing? We're equating
like Santa Claus.
We're equating Evil Me Plays Games to Santa Claus. That's what we're doing here.
Yes.
Hey, Elias, is Beedrill a bee or a wasp? Answer wrong and I activate the saw trap.
Beedrill is a hornet.